Great. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Senate Democratic Caucus. It is the 1st of February. Happy February. It's astonishing to realize January has zipped by. Today, we're committing to a format so that every other week we'll have a statewide issue that we address in a more substantive way and have a chance for both the caucus and the public to hear and get updated on statewide issue. And then every other week, we'll have updates from the chairs of Senate committees on what their committee priorities are and what they're working on actually this week and hoping to be getting out in the near future. So I think with that, our pro tem is going to be joining us in a bit, and she may have an update for the State House. But at the moment, I think we will just jump into committee updates, which as people know is where we do the bulk of our work, where we spend most of our time. The Senate serves on 2 committees, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And for many of us, we serve on oversight committees, additional committees, which are very time consuming, like the Reapportionment Committee, which you're going to be hearing about a bit this morning. So I think without further ado, we're doing a ton of work. It's actually very exciting and engaging. I think we'll start at the bottom of the alphabet. Last but never least, Senator Mazza with Senate Transportation.
Okay, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, I guess. We've been very busy with the budget. Naturally, there's a lot of federal dollars coming into the state of Vermont on infrastructure bill. So it adds a lot of good reports that we're going to do a lot more projects, and paving is $50 million more than it was a year ago, and bridges and everything else. So that's one of our topics right now. We're also dealing with electric charging stations. As you know, there's a big move. We spent a lot of time on electric vehicles, even electric bicycles, and we've got to figure out how to charge these vehicles. And we're the plan about putting charging stations convenient, and how we go about that, and how we're going to substitute the gasoline tax with some sort of a charge for the electric vehicles, because it is going to dwindle our gasoline tax substantially. It isn't now, but it's growing. There's only about 4,000 registered electric cars or vehicles in the state right now, but that's going to grow to hundreds of thousands in a few years. That, and we're also updating to find out exactly what the rights of bicycles are on the highways. They're growing, which is great, and adding electric bicycles. And there's some questions about what the right of way is and how they can maneuver the highways. And so those are some of the big issues that we're dealing with. And that's about it. Any questions? I'll take them.
No, I think that is great. The T-bill, as people may or may not remember, the money bills begin in the House and then come to the Senate. And so while the Senate is working on this, they are doing this in advance and being prepared, and we'll be ready to go when that bill arrives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love Senator Mazza's tie.
Oh, Mazza, let's see your tie. Oh, gorgeous.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Perfect for the 1st of February, right?
There you go.
So we have a new committee at the moment that pops in because it's the Reapportionment Committee. And so we do this every 10 years. Senator White is chairing that committee, and it would be great, Jeanette, if you'd be kind enough to give us an update.
Yep. So we are meeting 3 times a week now. We will be meeting Tuesdays from 5 to 6, Wednesdays from 8 in the morning till 9, and Fridays as close to noon till 1 as we can. And it's made up of 7 people, as you know. We have made a few decisions. We haven't started intensely looking at maps, but we have made a few decisions. One is that we are not going to accept the majority report from the Legislative Apportionment Board that advised us to make all single member districts for the Senate. And we are not locking ourselves into any particular number, 1, 2, or 3 in any district, but we are abiding by the statute that we passed a few years ago that said no district can be more than 3. But instead of locking ourselves into numbers. We're going to look through the lens of what is in the statutes and in the Constitution, and that's, for the most part, Senate seats, Senate districts should be at the county level. They should afford substantial equality. They should avoid splitting towns or counties and respect community connections, geography, and community interests, and be reasonably shaped. So that's what we're looking at. And our current, as you know, the way it works is that those counties who are underrepresenting, meaning they have too many people for the number of senators they have, and those who are overrepresented, meaning they have too many senators for their population, that those two deviations are added together to come to the deviation level. And it's normally felt that we should be striving for 12, 13, 14 in that. We are currently at 25.9, almost 26 deviation points. So we really have a lot to do. And the areas that are going to be the most affected are the Northeast and the Northwest. But so we're starting looking at the maps tonight, and we ask anybody if they want to join us, that's fine. And we would ask you to buddy up so that you can, I haven't buddied up since swim lessons, but we will ask you to buddy up and bring your questions and your concerns to one of the committee members. Otherwise, it can get out of hand, and our legislative counsel, Nick Atheron, will go crazy. So that's a report from appropriations. Reapportionment. I mean, I don't know if you have any questions.
Anybody have a question? Great. More to follow. Thank you,
And
Jeanette.
there is, just so everybody knows, there are tons and tons and tons of maps and information and census information on the Secretary of State's website under the apportionment tab.
And
I think
also-
Senator Collimer had a question. Campion.
Yes, I see.
I was just gonna check in, Senator White. I hope Nick's doing well. He's from the Bennington area, great guy, and I know he's really excited about the work. So I appreciate you taking him on. He's speaking highly of the work, so that's great.
He is going to be overwhelmed because he's staffing both the House and the Senate, and
Okay.
it's going to be a lot of work. So please don't bug him any more than necessary.
Thank you very much, Senator White. We're going to go to Senator Bray for the Natural Resources and Energy Committee update.
Okay, thank you, Madam Majority Leader. So updates, we continue to work on Act 250, really two very different but complementary aspects of Act 250. One is supporting smart growth with a focus of further development in our developed areas with an emphasis on housing. I think we're all aware of the ARPA dollars that are flowing in to give us a huge opportunity, but they come with the pressure of time, and housing projects often take a long time to permit and develop. So the dollars have to be committed by the end of, obligated by the end of 2024 and expended by 2026. And although that sounds like a long way out for a major development, including things like housing, that actually means we need to be on the ball and moving. So we're working on that side of things, and we're also working on forestry. So 75% of Vermont is largely not subjected to Act 250 through a forestry provision that looks at forest blocks and habitat. And we want to, we've talked for years about adding that provision. So the bill does that work as well. So that's a major piece of work that's underway. We're also working on the environmental justice bill. We continue to take testimony. We're now in the editing phase. We've got a committee strike all. We're working with partners to hone the language, the ordinary bill development work. We've also introduced briefly some fish and wildlife bills. So you may be hearing from constituents about that. So there are three different bills. One relates to how we use the composition of the Fish and Wildlife Board, a governance bill. There's also a bill about the use of leg hold traps, and there's a third bill about hunting coyotes using hounds. We're going to have a public hearing on all three bills, and that'll be a week from Wednesday, tomorrow. Be in the evening. There'll be a sign up. There'll be plenty of announcement and the whole thing, but it'll be entirely virtual, but it'll be very familiar format, as in when people log in, we'll ask them, are you here to speak for or against? And we're going to try to have a fair, balanced, polite hearing, alternating between different points of view. So those are the, environmental justice, Act 250, housing, and wildlife are the things that are most present right now.
Terrific. Thank you. And Chris, what time is the public hearing?
5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Great.
And again, I will get the sign up form out, well in advance and let people know so you can share it with interested constituents. But it will require registration
Okay,
to
great.
attend.
Terrific. Thanks. February 9th. Thanks. Without any questions, I think we're going to go straight to Senator Sears for a judiciary update.
Thank you, Alice. We're dealing with a number of bills. Probably the most controversial would be qualified immunity, and whether or not to do away with qualified immunity for the law enforcement officers. It's very complex legislation. A lot of U.S. Supreme Court decisions to better understand, some Vermont Supreme Court decisions to better understand. One side believes the sky is falling if we pass the bill. The other side feels that, and there's more than one side, by the way, as there is any kind of judiciary bill. And the other believes without it, you don't get police accountability. So it's very, I would say, one of the more difficult bills we've faced in years. The next bill is criminal threatening. We just started taking initial testimony on criminal threatening. And what this bill does is basically does two major things. One is it provides an enhanced penalty if the threatening is to either a person or a group of persons in a public accommodation. And public accommodation is basically any place the public is allowed to go to. So could be your school board meeting, could be a meeting of the legislature, could be a meeting of in your local store if somebody is fighting a mask mandate, for example. So it does all that, provides an enhanced penalty if it's done there in a public accommodation. And it also takes away the affirmative defense of not being able to actually follow through on the threat, because we believe that just the threat is enough to intimidate people in many cases. So, for example, the fact that the person's in California and making a threat on a Vermont official, and then they use the defense that they couldn't get to Vermont, it just doesn't fly. Well, I shouldn't say doesn't fly, because they could fly to Vermont, I guess. But anyway, it would take away that affirmative defense. Some of the other bills we're dealing with are less controversial. We're trying to fix justifiable homicide, which we have just finished doing. It'll be on the floor soon. Justifiable homicide is a case where you feel somebody else is in peril and you step in to help that person. And we want to make clear, we thought it was clear when we passed the bill last year, but want to make clear that you are justified in the use of force when it's somebody else that you're helping who you believe is in danger of violence. We're also dealing with a bill that will need to go to finance on utility debris or construction when people are putting in wires for broadband, for example. In many cases, the wires have gotten into farms and the haying, and then the animal, the cow or whatever, eats the hay that's contaminated and dies. So we're trying to deal with a bill on that to make it a so persons can collect insurance or win a lawsuit. We're dealing with a couple of other bills. One is an interesting one that may not pass out of committee on retail theft. We've all heard about the cases around the country where groups of people, rather than just individuals, go in and steal a bunch of items from stores. And it's not just that person. This would aggravate because currently there's a $900 limit before it's a felony, and it's a misdemeanor, anything 900 or under. And so you would be able, under this bill, you'd be able to aggregate that amount that the group is taking. But the bill may not make it out of committee. That pretty much does what we're doing right now. There's a few other bills that we'll be taking up, including S30, which just came back from the House. It's a firearm bill and has been amended quite a bit in the House.
Right. Thank you, Dick. Thank you. I think given the time frame we have, I'm going to ask Senator McCormick to step in as vice chair and give the update on institutions. Thank you. And we will end with appropriations and the Budget Adjustment Act update from Senator Kitchell. So we'll end committee updates with ag and then go to appropriations for a fuller BAA report. So
if we have time, I'd appreciate hearing from judiciary as to whether or not they're considering an aggravating factor in threatening if it's a public official. But I'll just get to institutions now. Just, we do bricks and mortar. So we do not have jurisdiction over program in corrections, but we do deal with bricks and mortar. And of course, I think everyone is aware of ongoing corrections facility questions, and also with what to do about kids who are unmanageable to the point where they really have to be put where they can't hurt people. They have to be, we don't like to think of them as incarcerated, but at least that their physical freedom is limited. And nothing resolved on that, but we are still continuing to deal with it. We deal with the capital construction bill, and we are still, I would say it's the end of the beginning for the session, which is to say just reviewing with BGS, Buildings and General Services. We are dealing with the State House, and there's a question of a proposal. We don't have enough room. The House committees are too small. Air exchange is bad. One problem is just do something about air exchange and live with what we've got. But there's also the idea that at some point we're going to need to expand our space, and we want to keep it in the State House. Sending committees out to other buildings was probably a bad idea. A plan that is interesting is that when the cafeteria wing was built in the first place, it was built to sustain the addition of another story. And there's a proposal to move the cafeteria up to the second story and use the present space of the present cafeteria for House committee rooms. So we took testimony from Department of Environmental Conservation regarding the infrastructure for surface runoff. which the state aids in financing. There's often these are municipal facilities, but the state aids in financing. And there's some difference of opinion on the committee as to how much we want to do on that. Interestingly, was a Republican member, Corey Parent, who was the most passionate about the need to pay attention. I think representing us, a town on the lake, had something to do with it. And then we, Madam Chair. Oh, it sounded like you were. And then we heard from the Eastern States Exposition, which is actually in Massachusetts, of course, but we heard arguments for upgrading and doing restoration of deterioration in the Vermont Pavilion. And they make a very strong case for how good that activity is for our products, our agricultural products. And
Great.
that we actually, in terms of the getting started on the State House, at least design, there was actually a committee vote on that, 3-2, bipartisan on both sides.
Great. Yes, we got to read about that.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Dick. I think we will move to Senator Lyons with Health and Welfare Committee.
Thank you, Senator Clarkson. Health and Welfare is working on a long list of bills, but I'm just going to go through a few that we are engaged in and probably looking at passing out fairly quickly. We're looking at the parent-child centers, which, as you know, are service organizations across the state within each county that help folks, families, and children. Very important to our Agency of Human Services and the work that's done, whether it is for primary care or whether it's for home visiting for families. So that bill is a bill that will put together the network and allow for the network to have more cohesiveness and standards for organization based on national standards. We're ready to do markup on that bill and complete our work, hopefully one day this week. We worked very hard on it this morning. We're also looking at what we all know to be a significant need in the state, and that's mental health services. We're responding to the crisis of mental health. We have 3 bills in the committee that deal, 2 of them dealing with peer support services, which we know have become an outstanding way for folks with mental illness to reach out and to gain some support during a recovery or whenever they feel a need. We have 2 peer support centers in our state. One's in the center part of the state, the other's in Chittenden County. But we see a desperate need for more of these services across the state. We will be hearing more testimony about peer support this week and hopefully integrating another bill, a working group bill to look at where are additional gaps and how can we better coordinate our mental health continuity of care under the umbrella of the Department of Mental Health. So we're looking at that. We know that the Department of Public Safety is doing a great deal of work on integrating mental health providers into our state police barracks, but we want to reach further than that and to build a system of care through the state. So that's the smaller bill on the working group, and we'll be talking about that and how best to integrate perhaps that bill with the other 2. One of the bills deals with certification of peer support workers. So we know that there will be some oversight and responsibility and attention paid to who is actually providing peer support. So we'll be looking at that certification bill as well. So those are the 3 mental health bills that we're dealing with. I will say that it will be, we're trying to be inclusive despite, we hear about adults needing services, but we know how critical it is right now for children. So we're going to try to integrate whatever we can in terms of mental health support for kids. And whether we do that in this bill, this set of bills, or another one, we'll be making decisions in committee.
Great.
We're also looking, I'll just mention a couple of other bills. We have a cognitive impairment bill, which was supported by the Alzheimer's Working Group, Board of Directors, and others. Will be hearing further testimony on that bill this week. And that'll be, I think that should be ready to for final discussion next week, hopefully. Then we also have a bill called Regulatory Flexibility that came to us from the House. This is a continuing discussion on what we need during the pandemic and as a pandemic winds down for our healthcare institutions and providers to ensure that they can keep doing the work that they're doing. So we will pick that bill up. Even though it's an H bill, a number of the provisions in the bill run out in March. So we want to work as quickly as we can with that one.
Great.
So I'll stop there. Those are four of the areas that we're looking at right now. We have a long list of other things, including prescription drugs, but thank you
Right.
very much.
That we'll save those for the next update. Thank you. I think Senator McDonald is going to be giving us a brief update. We are sadly getting shorter on time, and I know we want to get people are interested in the BAA. So Senator McDonald, you're on deck for finance, I believe, because Senator Cummings is not able to be with us.
Madam Chair, we're taking what people send us, and I'm not prepared to give you a detailed list. Why don't you move on to others?
Okay, great. We will look forward to, I know finance is swamped with all the requests that it already has. Senator Campion and education. Oh, no, sorry, Senator White with government operations.
I was going to say it would be hard for me to follow Senator McDonald's report. So
Right. So,
Well, it's okay, you can follow mine. I'm going to say that we continue to work on ethics, the municipal bill, a number of law enforcement issues. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at this week is how the state addresses language access for Vermont residents for whom English is not their first language. So we continue to work on, we have about 30 bills and we will continue to work on them. So that's my report.
thank you. And with that, we go to Senator Campion and education.
thanks, Senator Clarkson. We too, we're working on several bills, some follow-up from last year that people will see, senators will see in a miscellaneous ed bill. Largely, though, we've been focused on working with the administration as it relates to the pandemic. We will hear another update tomorrow from Dr. Levine and Secretary French. I do appreciate when senators have sent us questions. I think the best way to communicate sometimes on this is if you have an opportunity, their testimony isn't usually very long. Take a little time to take a look, but we'll also try to get back to senators as quickly as possible so that they get their answers in a timely fashion. The other two things that I'd say, or three things that we've really been occupied, that's occupied our time, have been the issue of church and state. Senators will recall that back, I think it was in 1999, there was a decision by the state Supreme Court that would allow public dollars to go to religious institutions, providing that there was a framework and some restrictions around how those dollars are used. We're working right now to create that kind of framework to keep dollars, public dollars, as much as possible going to what might be considered general education and not to any kind of promoting of a religion. This is an ongoing topic and discussion in the courts throughout the country right now, and there's a Supreme Court decision that will be that has been heard, and the justices are slated to put a decision out on what's a case out of Maine sometime this summer, probably in June, so late spring. The other issue related to that is discrimination policy, and we're working on with the state board to prevent any kind of discrimination at religious institutions, with an eye particular toward the LGBTQ community. So hopefully this week we'll have a better idea of what direction we're moving in on that issue, and how we think the state should generally move forward, again, to protect tax dollars from supporting religion. The second issue that we've spent a lot of time on is the weighting study. This in particular, how ELL students are funded. We've been going back and forth. We've had a lot of testimony, and I've probably heard from most of you also on whether or not you believe the weighted approach is the way to go, or a categorical grant, what approach is the way to go. And we anticipate having a decision, an opinion that we would share with finance later this week, and then finance will dig into this more and actually probably continue to take testimony depending on where our committee lands, as well as determine the weights or categorical aid amount. And then finally, following up on what Senator Lyons said, learning loss, social emotional health of students, these are big issues, and we're hearing about it in the news. We're probably hearing about it in our own families. The state is putting together a learning loss recovery program, which I believe they will be finalizing within the next month. And once that's out, we'll share it with all of you. So those are a few updates. I'm happy to take any questions now or offline.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Senator McDonald.
Thank the senator. Finance has taken several days to talk about weighting, has heard from various witnesses, and is eager to hear that one. That's one we've been working on with some steady diligence. So
Great.
thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. I think that we'll go, given our time, we're going to go to Senator Sirotkin with economic development, then to Senator Starr for ag, and then end with a BAA update from Senator Kitchell. So Senator Sirotkin.
Thank you, Allison. It's our intent in our committee to come out with two significant omnibus bills, one that dealing with housing and the other with economic development. We've been taking ideas from the administration, advocates, putting them into a draft bill, and then we're going to go through them line by line. But one of the things you may have been hearing about recently, I know I got about 20 emails yesterday on it. I hope for your sake it's confined to our committee, but is last year we appropriated $30 million to help businesses get recovery gap grants, and only $4 million of that money has been spent. And the argument is that the restrictions that we put on the grant money, which was designed to target to those businesses most in need, were too tight. And we've been open to changing the guidelines to make it more feasible for those businesses to apply, but the administration doesn't seem all that interested in changing the guidelines. They want to create a new program in VITA, which is more like the PPP loan program. So we're dealing in depth with that. If you're getting emails on that, rest assured that we're looking at that issue in depth. They also want to increase significantly, the administration does, the amount of money for capital investment programs. Ultimately, these will be appropriations decisions, but we hope to put guidelines around those programs and make recommendations for the amount of money. I think the administration is looking for $50 million in that program. So we have a whole raft of ideas in both the housing and the economic development bill. I'd say you're going to see very long bills with 10 or 15 different concepts within each of them. On housing, there's a lot of things dealing with permitting and land use that we'll be working with Senator Bray's committee on to make sure we don't step on each other's toes, but they have a lot to do in terms of policy as to how much housing we can develop and at what price and how costly it will be. So we're looking at things like wastewater duplication of permitting, priority housing projects. What are the criteria to be exempt from Act 250 under those guidelines, establishing more details around designations for downtowns, town centers, neighborhood development areas, and the like. So there'll be a lot of policy in that bill. And I always say the housing, even though it's primarily about money, we can change a lot of policies in the state of Vermont to make development more to our liking and in smart growth areas. The House is dealing with the workforce shortage issue. We agreed with them on that. They're dealing with vice bills like tobacco and gambling and alcohol. So they'll send us over those, and we're going to send them over economic development and housing. And in the interest of time, we'll stop there.
Great. Thank you very much. And we're going to go to Senator Starr briefly before we go to Senator Kitchell and the budget adjustment.
Senator Clarkson, can you and could Sally and you please check the chat? I need, Senator Kitchell needs to have the telephone number.
I'm sending it to her right now.
Thank you very much, Sally.
Yep.
Sorry to bother.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I've so channeled my Senate Government Operations Chair that I don't ever check the chat during a meeting. She has trained me well. Senator Starr on Senate Agriculture.
Yeah, we've been working on S-188. It's regulating the licensing of small cultivators on cannabis and getting that so that it could be classified under agriculture and participate in current use. That bill, I think we have another day or two of work to do on that. We've worked with the agency on many, not major issues, but language changes to current laws that would help proceed with those current laws. We also worked and have sent to appropriations a draft form helping our dairy farmers. The USDA has a payment program set up so if the milk prices fluctuate and go down a great deal, they'll pay a certain amount to bring that price back up to where it's manageable on the farm. And what we did is put together a program to cover the insurance cost of that premium so that we could get all of our farmers to sign up on that. And it's really designed to be set up for the small farmers to help them through tough times. We've taken quite a lot of testimony on the farm to school program and food security issues that we're going to be dealing with. And the last issue that I want to talk about is we have a lot of waste products that go through a DRAP program where they DRAP it in this machine, but we want to make sure that none of those microplastics reach our farm soils. So, once it goes through the DRAP, goes through the digester, what happens to that product next? So we're drilling down on that, making sure that our fields are not contaminated with microplastics or sludge products that are coming out of some of our waste water treatment facilities. And hopefully we'll come up with some decent regulations to deal with that. And that's about where we are.
Well, thank you. That's a good place to be. That we all look at all that waste on all those hay bales. Wonder what happens. So I'm glad you're dealing with that. I don't see Senator Kitchell back with us, and I do believe Senator Nitka, if you wanted to give us a brief update, but I believe Senator Kitchell is being asked to give us have a caucus of the whole to really go through the budget adjustment bill. And I believe the pro tem is asking her to do that. So I And unless Senator Nitka, you'd like to give us a brief update on the BA, and you're close to voting it out, is that right?
Yes, we definitely are. We're getting all the pieces in that have come in from other committees. I mean, all that are appropriate to get in and moving right along on that. So I'm assuming we will be done this week.
Right, great.
Better
Thank you. So, thank you, caucus. I think look for perhaps a caucus of the whole once the Budget Adjustment Act is finalized. And if are there any questions at this point? Because I think we're almost done. Senator Rahm Hinsdale.
This is maybe a question for Senator Bray and or Senator Nitka, but I just learned that the civil rights officer position in ANR, that's part-time, which we were told would be proposed as full-time, which is really critical to a lot of the environmental justice and climate council efforts that we've been discussing. It was not put in as a full-time position, and we would now need to add $50,000 to make that a full-time position. I know it's small, but it would be really critical. I was really disappointed to see that position was left at halftime.
Well, so thanks for that update. We are talking about that very bill this week, and we have ANR in, so we can follow up with them.
And Senator Bray, you had another question before.
Yeah, I just, since we don't get together like this very often, I wanted to say to Senator Starr, we have a bill in Senate Natural Resources and Energy to come at that microplastics issue from the solid waste side of things. So let's buddy up with your committee.
Ooh,
and Senator Sorokin, we are making good progress, I think, on supporting housing in our committee. So let's stay in touch so that we keep our bills synced up there too. Thanks.
Great. Thank you all very much. This is terrific. And we shall see you soon. And we're sorry to miss Senator Kitchell, but we'll let them finish the BAA and then we'll all hear about it as a caucus of the whole in the Senate.